Namaste and welcome to Tridevi Chamunda Mandir in Denver, Colorado. I'm Yama, and I'm so glad that you're joining me this evening for our Friday Puja. And right now we're in the tail end of the celebration known as Shivaratri, the great night of Lord Shiva. And in previous years, I did this particular puja at midnight at another local temple, Shiva Sai Mandir. And unfortunately, due to the COVID epidemic, it just didn't seem to work out this year. So I'm presenting the puja through my temple this year and sharing it with you. And I want to say namaste to Raphael and Susan. And I invite anybody else to say hello using the chat function on the bottom of the screen. Also, for anything that we do, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me through my channel as well. We have some interesting things coming up in the month of March. So on Tuesdays, we're continuing with our Tuesday satsangs, gentle yoga, meditation, and puja. And this will be number 2 in our second chakra series. And we'll be honoring the second chakra, in fact. And this time around, we're doing chair yoga and adaptive yoga. And previously it was mat yoga. And that way, those of you who would like to do these different practices, you have that many more choices. Next Friday, we'll be doing Yoga Nidra, guided meditation. And the last Friday of the month, we'll be honoring the third of the Kali Nitya goddesses, the goddess Kurukula. So again, namaste and welcome. And so I'd like to begin with a verse that you may find familiar. Om Sadhana Bhavatu Sadhana Bhunaktu Saviryam Kadavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvidyavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May we protect and nurture each other. May we rejoice together. May our strength and vitality grow together. May our knowledge shine. May we not be jealous of each other, sometimes translated to may we not quarrel. Om peace, peace, peace. This is both the opening and closing verse of this scripture, the Katha Upanishad. And it is very much a scripture of Lord Yama, also known as Dharmaraja, the Lord of Death, but also the upholder of Dharma and one of the greatest of teachers. So in the Katha Upanishad, it's the story of a young boy whose name is Natiketa. And he's the son of this very highly respected priest and pujari and sage. And one day, while his father was getting ready for a festival, maybe Mahashivaratri, little Natiketa walks up to his father, and you know how insistent little kids can be. He keeps tugging at his father's robe and keeps asking, Father, Father, what God should I devote myself to? Who should I devote myself to? And his father just trying to get things done, trying to get his son quiet. And finally, his father snapped. And he said, oh, go to Yama. Well, Nachiketa took his father at his word, and he traveled into the underworld, the realm of Yamaloka. And this is a place where some souls will go to rest, sometimes working off certain karmic debts before reincarnating. So Natiketa sits outside of the gates to Yamaloka, waiting to be admitted. And he waits and he waits and he waits several days. While that's happening, the souls of the departed are walking over him. You know, anybody else would probably lose their patience and give up, but he stayed there. And finally, he's allowed into the underworld. And he's asked, why are you here? And he says, I want to devote myself to Lord Yama. I'm looking for a boon from Lord Yama. And at first he's told, you don't want to do that. And he's tempted with all these things that other spiritual figures and their stories tend to be tempted by. So carnal delights, money, power, same things that Buddha and Jesus were tempted with, and he will not be swayed. So finally, he's allowed into the throne room of Lord Yama, and Lord Yama takes him on as his disciple. And so much of the Katha Upanishad, also known as the Razor's Edge Upanishad, the one that's mentioned in the Somerset Maugham novel, much of the Upanishad is this guru and disciple discussion on things like, the meaning of life and the nature of humanity, the nature of Atman, the soul, and also moksha, liberation. And so Natiketa then comes back to our realm, enlightened. He teaches what he learned from Yama. He shares different kinds of pujas that he learned in the underworld as well. So Lord Yama, though a personification of probably our greatest fear, represents the lessons that we can learn by transcending that fear. So this is a traditional metal tanka picture of Yama and his consort, Ma Chamunda. So we see a lot of illustrations of Kali with Shiva, but Kali is also seen with Lord Yama as her consort. And so in this illustration, we see Lord Yama with the head of a buffalo, and male buffalo is also his mount. He's holding two instruments, a skull staff called a katvanga, which represents mastery over change, and a coil of rope, which is used to bind two things: the souls of the dead to bring them to the underworld. And also when you see a deity with a coil of rope, it represents the binding of ignorance. And then Ma Chamunda is holding two items. She holds a skull cup or kapala, like the one I have on my altar here, that represents the transformation of consciousness. And she holds a trident. And the trident, or Trishula, represents a great many things. It represents the three main energy channels of the body, Ida, Pingla, and then the central channel, Shushumna, which is the power of meditation, especially tantric or Kriya meditation. The Trishula also represents the principles of creation, preservation, and destruction. And finally, three functions of the divine: Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti, or the powers of will, knowledge, and action. We notice under the buffalo there is a person lying on the ground, and he and the buffalo appear to be in rather an intimate position. And this represents not just the transcending of our greatest fear, the fear of death, but there's really this idea that, if we can get beyond our fear of death, then all our other fears tend to disappear. They become insignificant. And so really this illustrates the tantric principle of challenging our fears, challenging our sense of what's taboo or forbidden. And this also represents just the ultimate surrender of the devotee to the divine. So Yama is pictured in some other ways. Sometimes he's in human form, he's got a large belly, he's riding on a buffalo. His skin is sometimes red, sometimes like this mask from Nepal, green in color. And sometimes he's identical with Lord Bhairab, also known as Mahakala, the great force of time. And this is the wrathful form of Lord Shiva. And so this is why I like to honor Lord Yama and Ma Chamunda, also known as Yama and Yami, during Shivaratri. So Mahakala, the great force of time, really the masculine side of Kali, whose name also means time. I have a tin mask, also from Nepal, of Lord Bhairab, and it could just as easily represent Lord Yama as well. Yama is really the personification of Lord Shiva's aspect as destroyer. And in Himalayan culture, especially around Nepal, the two are really the same individual. So the form of Yama that I showed you in the tanka here, and this is a mask of the same figure. He's known as Yamantanka and also Vajra Bhairava, or the wrathful Shiva of the diamond or the lightning bolt. And speaking of Shiva and Yama, there's another story and it concerns the author of my favorite scripture, the Devi Mahatmaya, also known as the Chandipat or Durga Shaptasati. This was written as part of a much larger epic or Purana by a sage named Markandeya. And there's a legend about Markandeya and how he came into the world. So there was this elderly couple, and they had been trying for years and years to have a child, and they were never lucky enough. And they kept doing these long devotions and meditations, hoping to please the gods and allow her to conceive. Well, the gods took pity on them and offered them this boon in exchange for their devotion. They said, "We will give you a son, but you have a choice. Your son can live a very long life, but he's going to be a very simple person, or he'll only live to be the age of 16, but he'll be incredibly wise." And the couple talked it over, and they just immediately chose the latter. So Markandeya, as he grew up, incredibly intelligent, incredibly spiritual, really possessing the knowledge of a wise elder, despite the fact that he's still just a boy. And then on the eve of his 16th birthday, he noticed that his parents were really upset, were really sad, seemed really frightened. And he asked them, what's happening? What's wrong? And at first they didn't want to tell him. And finally they said, well, we made this promise with the gods and explained the whole situation around his birth. And he said, I'm not afraid. I put my trust in Lord Shiva. And so he went out into the forest, grabbed some clay, and formed a Shiva lingam. And as midnight fell, Lord Yama came riding out on his buffalo with his coil of rope, ready to lasso him with the rope and take him to the underworld. And Markandeya was embracing the Shiva lingam, praying to Lord Shiva, and suddenly Lord Shiva appears and frightens Yama away. It's almost the whole exchange kind of reads like an exchange between two different aspects, two different sub-personalities in one's psyche. So Markandeya actually lived a very long life, but Shiva granted him the boon that he would always be 15 and 364 days. He didn't age his whole life. He always had the appearance of a 16-year-old. So I want to share one more story that really puts together both Kali and Yama, also known again as Yama and Yami. And I'm going to share this short excerpt from my most recent book, Kali Meditation, Part 3. The oldest scriptural text in the world, the Rig Veda, the first of the 4 Vedic texts, its name means praise of knowledge and may date back at least 4,000 years. The text contains hymns to the oldest known Hindu deities. Yama and Yami were originally the first 2 mortal humans to be born into this world and thus the progenitors of all humanity. They were the children of Surya, the sun god, and his wife, the storm cloud goddess Saranyu, whose name means conscience. The original meaning of Yama and Yami were masculine and feminine twins. The words, however, came to mean the ones who restrain, thus implying the natural laws to which all human beings are subject. And of course, the yamas, or the restrictions, are one of the 8 limbs of yoga. Yama became known as Dharmaraja, the upholder of Dharma, correct purpose, while Yami was later personified as Yamuna, one of the great river goddesses of India. In the yogic subtle anatomy, the Yamuna River is identified with Ida Nadi, the feminine energy channel located in the left side of the body. The twins Yama and Yami were conceived and delivered by Saranyu's womb. And like the biblical Adam and Eve, they were born into a garden of earthly delights where time stood still. Here it was always daytime and the seasons always spring. Everything remained eternally young and death did not exist. Yama and Yami lived together in harmony, and as they grew into adulthood, their love for one another deepened. Yami longed to become Yama's lover and thus the mother of all humanity, but Yama was reluctant to engage in a relationship deemed incestuous. In the 10th hymn of the Rig Veda, Yami says, "My desire for Yama overwhelms me. To lie with him on the same common couch, I will yield myself as his wife would to her husband. Let us hasten to unite, like two wheels on a wagon. To which Yama replied, the sentinels of the gods which wander around us never stand still, never close their eyes. Associate yourself with someone other than me, and exert yourself in union like the two wheels of a wagon. The succeeding times will come when brothers and sisters will perform acts that are unmeet for kinsfolk, but not for me. O fair one, seek another husband other than me, and make your arm a pillow for your consort. Yami then said, is he a brother whose sister has no lord? Is she a sister when destruction comes? Overcome by love, these words I utter. Come near and hold me in your close embrace. Yama responded by saying, I will not entwine my arms around your body. They call it a sin when one draws near to his sister. Enjoy the pleasure of someone other than me, for your brother, auspicious one, has no such desire. Alas, Yama, you are weak, said Yami. In you I find no trace of heart or spirit. Some other female will embrace you as a creeper clings to a tree. Then find another's embrace you, Yami, replied Yama. Let another enfold you, even as a creeper encircles a tree. Win his heart, and let him win your fancy, and he shall form with you a blessed alliance. The hymn at this point ends rather abruptly, with no closing verses. Many interpret the omitted ending, most likely had Yama succumbing to his twin's advances. After all, the human race exists today in great numbers. In embracing Yami and overcoming and becoming her lover and husband, Yama would have experienced a full life involving marriage and fatherhood. He would have seen his children grow to maturity, marry, and have children of their own. At this point, the divine couple would have been the first to perceive time in a once timeless world. In another version of the story, Yama finds her husband, Yama, lying under a tree as if he were asleep. She softly called his name and gently shook him, but Yama did not respond. She called louder and shook him even harder, but Yama still did not respond. Yami then noticed that Yama's body felt cold and he was not breathing. Yami realized that Yama was no longer alive. He had become the first ever to die. Yami was heartbroken at this revelation, and she was overcome with grief. Her tears became the sacred river Chamunda, which inundated the earth. Because it was only daytime and never night, Yami's grief was also endless. The gods and goddesses assumed physical forms and tried to comfort Yami in her despair, but she was inconsolable, saying, "But Yama died today." After meeting in council, the gods finally revealed that Yami's grief was eternal. Because she existed in an unending state of time, there was no such thing as yesterday, and there was no such thing as tomorrow. To alleviate Yami's perpetual sorrow, the gods reasoned that they needed to bring equal intervals of day and night into being, for only then could today become yesterday and tomorrow truly begin. So the great Vedic gods of the earth and sky used their creative powers to bring night into existence by causing the sun to sink below the western horizon and later to rise above again in the east. During the intervals of darkness, the moon and the stars made their first appearance against a black velvet vault of the sky, causing the earth's creatures to seek rest and fall into sleep. Among these creatures, Yami also slept for the first time. She awoke as the dawn sky and breathing with the awareness that Yama had died before the onset of night. And she said to herself, "Why, Yama must have died yesterday." And then the next sequence of dusk, dawn, and day came to pass, and she said, "Well, Yama died the day before yesterday." As time passed and the seasons began to manifest, Yami's grief slowly began to ease with the passage of time. There were now intervals of darkness and sleep that divided her days, and oblivion came to vanquish the pain of her brother's death, as did her cherished memories of their life together. And although her grief remained, while her waking memories persisted, she also experienced the true nature of human existence and became wise through the acceptance of her suffering. By being the first mortals to experience the full spectrum of human existence, Yama and Yami became deified and took their place among the gods and goddesses. Because Yama had been the first man ever to be born, he was also the first ever to die. And according to the Vedas, he was also the first human being to discover the secrets of death and the cosmic laws that govern existence. Through experiencing death as a portal to immortality, he attained the divine status of a god in his own right, becoming the Lord of the Dead, and the auxiliary title of Dharmaraja, meaning King of Dharma, or righteousness. Yama rules over the underworld realm of Yamaloka, where the souls of the dead rest and sometimes undergo penance for various karmic debts before once again taking birth. Yami became Ma Chamunda herself. In the collection of tantric goddesses known as the Ashtamatrika, the 8 little mothers, she is recognized as Lord Yama's consort. Yama personifies the function of Lord Shiva as destroyer. Thus, he is identified with Mahakala Bhairava, the great, terrifying force of time, Shiva's wrathful aspect. Likewise, Chamunda Kali is recognized as the wrathful form of Parvati, who is Shiva's consort, or Shakti. Bhairava and Chamunda, in this case known as Bhairavi, dwell upon the cremation grounds. They convey the souls to the dead upon the path toward the next life, and they share their wisdom with those devotees who are willing to let go of their fears. Their direction on the wheel of the compass is the south. South of Kathmandu city is the temple of Dakshin Kali, meaning Kali of the southern direction, a form of the Divine Mother who is both destructive and yet protective of her children. It is said that the Dakshin Kali temple was built after the goddess Kali herself appeared in a dream of a Malla king, a ruler in the 14th century. In his dream, the goddess appeared to the king naked, with black skin and multiple hands. She held a trident, sword, shield, and the severed head of a demon. She was crouched in a birth-giving position upon the corpse of Lord Shiva, and her 2 remaining hands grasped a section of viscera taken from his abdomen, upon which she was feeding. The goddess commanded the king to build a temple dedicated to her in a very unknown, strange place at the bottom of a valley. In return for building this temple, she said his subjects would be protected from disease and misfortune. Soon after the king's dream, another person living in the area reported that he had discovered a stone image of the goddess Kali in the same place where the goddess had commanded the king to build her temple. The image was then left to the elements as she commanded, and overhead a gilded cover was erected with 4 golden serpents supporting it. In addition, images of Lord Ganesha and the 8 Ashtamatrikas carved in stone and the stone Bhairava were placed in the inner sanctum along with her image. As Yama's consort, Yami, or Dakshin Kali, is called upon for protection from disease, misfortune, and death. On Tuesdays and Saturdays, Kali's holy days, associated with Mars and Saturn, respectively, animals, especially cockerels and uncastrated male goats, are brought by devotees for sacrifice. They are slaughtered in the temple's inner courtyard with a quick decapitation, and their meat cooked and shared during family celebrations such as weddings, success in business, or a child passing his or her grade 10 exams and becoming eligible for university. Yama and Yami. So tonight's puja is going to be in several sections and in a very traditional form for Yama puja. So we'll be doing the usual invocations and puja offerings. I'll be rekindling our ritual fire. I've got rather an interesting Havan here. And we're going to be doing a couple of hymns. One is the 108 names of Ma Chamunda. The second is the 14 names of Lord Yama. I'll be making some Palo Santo wood to our fire during each verse or name. And prior to that, though, we'll be doing a round of mantras for Lord Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. And we will also honor Lord Shiva with a mantra as well. Thinking of the story of Markandeya, the Shiva mantra would be very good to remember those closest to us who are fighting illness right now. I'd especially like to remember our friend Lupita, who I got some very good news was transferred out of ICU today, and also my sister-in-law Estelle, who unfortunately is fighting COVID right now. It's so far a mild case, and hope it stays that way. So, Yama, Yami. Om. Pavitra Pavitrova Sarvabhistam Gatopiva Yashmare Pandarikaksham Sabhyavyanta Sushi Om Ganganapate Namo Nama Jiganesha Om Sri Gurubhyo Nama Jiguru Jayama Om Namah Shivaya Om Namah Shivaya Om Sava Mangala Mangalye Shiva Svada Sadike Saranye Trambake Devi Naryane Namostute Jimakali. Om. 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 Kapuragaram Karanavataram Samsarasaram Bhujagendra Haram Sada Santam Hridayaravinде Bhavam Bhavani Satam Namami Devi Prapanote Hare Prasida Prasida Matara Jagata Kilasya Prasida Vishvesvara Pe Vishvam Tvameshwara Devi Chachara Charasya Om Agni Jyotir Jyotiagnir Svaha Agni Jyotir Jyotiagnir Svaha Agni Jyoti Jyotiagnir Svaha Om Vakratunda Makaya Suryakoti Samabrahma Nirvignam Kurumudeva Sabakaryam Siddhe. Jai Ganesha. So with the mantra to Ganesha, I invite you to let its energies remove any obstacles in your lives. The mantra is Gam Ganapataye Namo Namah. Om 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 Gam Ganapataye Namo Namah. For the removal of obstacles, especially in this transition between winter and spring. Jai Ganesha. Jai Ganesha. Jai Ganesha. We honor Lord Shiva. And let the power of his mantra go to those who are in need of healing. Om Trayambakam Yajamae Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukameva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyam Amritat. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Om Kalase Patona Namah. For those in need of healing, healing of body, healing of mind, and healing of spirit. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Sri Chamundeshvari Asata Shatanamastotram. The 108 names of Ma Chamunda. Sri Chamunda Mahamaya Sri Matsima Saneshvari Sri Vidya Vidyamaya Sri Chakra Paravashani Sri Kantadaita Gauri Grija Bhuvaneshvari Makali Lakshmi Mavani Manonmani Sasrasya Susamyukte Sasraka Mandita Kajumba Vasanopta Ratna Kanchuka Dharani Ganesha Skanda Janani Japa Kushama Basura Umakatyayane Duga Pantri Dandani Jaya Kalaningula Dokat Panananyanda Shakrita Sachmaravanishte Dikshana Sevita Indrakshi Baglabala Chakri Sevi Jayambika Panchapersanaruda Haran Gum Guma Priya Ma Bala Adranlaya Mahisa Shura Madani Madhukataba Samarani Madhapurnaika Kameshvari Yogani Drabhavani Chandika Sati Chakra Jarathavusha Siddha Sityantakarani Annapurna Jivala Jiva Kalaratri Svarupani Nishumba Shumba Madani Rakta Bija Nishudani Brahmyati Matakarupa Subhasatrakra Devita Mula Prakyetu Puraya Parvadi Parameshvari Bindu Pitakatavasya Chandramandala Maigaj Gandaganda Sambutta Vinja Jalanivashani Hagriva Agastya Puja Soya Chandragna Lochana Jalandala Supithasta Shiva Daksheya Nishvari Navavarana Sampuja Navaksaramanustuta Navalavarupaja Jivalavatrim Shudeoda Kamashabara Mangalya Chandravega Vibhudita Charajar Jagadrupa Nitya Klina Parajita Oidyana Pitanlaya Lalita Vishnu Zodaridam Sagadvana Vashras Narivanivashani Sava Mangala Rupaja Sachidananda Vigraha Astasha Supadasta Barinda Bhairavi Para Vundamala Satkanda Banda Sodam Adani Pundrek Chukundago Danda Pushpa Banla Satkara Shivaduti Vadamata Shankari Sima Vahana Chat Satya Pashadya Yogani Gana Sevita Navadoga Badrakali Kadamba Vanavashani Chandamunda Sasatri Majini Sudamai Sri Chakra Vadatatanga Sri Shila Brahma Ambika Sri Rajajavadada Sri Matripura Sundari Shakambari Shantidatri Shatanandri Shivapriya Rakandavadana Ramya Ramadi Avada Krita Sri Chamundika Devya Nam Namastotram Shatam Patam Bhaktya Chayam Divim Sadhan Kamanava Punyat. Our mantra for Ma Chamunda to help guide us through our transitions and to teach us wisdom is one that's especially appropriate for Ma Dakshin Kali, the Kali of the South, the Kali who is united with Yama. Om Krim Nama. 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 Om Krim Namah. 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 Tama Kali. Tama Yami. Tama Dakshin Kali. The great force of time. Yama. 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 Om Surya Putraya Vidmae Mahakalya Dimai Tano Yama Prachodayat. Yama Vandanam, the hymn for worshiping Lord Yama, recitation of his 14 names. Yamaya Dharmaraja Murtyave Chandakaya Cha Vaivasvataya Kalaya Sarvabhuta Keshayaya Cha Odambaraya Chitraya Chitragruptaya Vainama Chitragruptaya Vainama Omite Om Yamaya Dharmaraja Mrityave Chandakaya Cha Vaivasvataya Kalaya Sarvabhuta Keshayaya Cha Odambaraya Dadnaya Nilaya Parameshtani Rukodaraya Chitraya Chitragruptaya Vainama Chitragruptaya Vainama Omite Yamaya Dharmaraja Mrityave Chandakaya Cha Vaivasvataya Kalaya Sarvabhuta Keshayaya Cha Odambaraya Danaya Nilaya Parameshtani Rukodaraya Chitraya Chitragruptaya Vainama Chitragruptaya Vainama Omite. Salutations to Yama, to he who controls and rules everything, to the Lord of Dharma, to the dissolver of everything, to the Son of the Sun, to the one who has time as his form, to the one who supervises the death of all beings, mighty one, one who is named holder of all things, to the dark-hued one, to the one who is worshipped by all, to the big-bellied one, to the mysterious one, to the one who keeps his mystery a secret, to the scribe and recorder of all events. Yama. Our mantra to Lord Yama is Om Mom Yamaya Nama. Afterwards, I invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply for a guided meditation. Om Mom Yamaya Nama. 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 Yama. Jai Dharmaraja. Jai Yamantanka. Vajrabhairav. I invite you now to sit comfortably and close your eyes in meditation. Breathe deeply and allow my words to guide you. Breathing deeply. I invite you to think about some aspect of your life that you're ready to let go of as winter turns to spring. Just some small part of your life, a habit, fear, or anxiety. It can be anything. Breathe deeply and take a moment to acknowledge it. And as you breathe, and as you think about this issue, I invite you to tune in with your body and recognize the place in your physical form that this issue manifests. It can exist as an area of tension or an area of emptiness. Or just some other sensation. But take a moment and just focus on that place where this issue manifests physically. And I invite you now to project that issue outward so that it manifests in front of you in the form of a shape. Just let it come out with an out breath. See it manifesting before you. And just take a moment as you breathe and notice what shape it is, what color it might be. Does it seem to be heavy or light? But just view it from a safe, comfortable distance. And as you meditate on this issue, the shape, in a non-attached manner, notice a word or a name that comes up associated with that shape, with that issue. Now, as you breathe, you begin to notice something in the far off distance slowly approaching. As it comes closer and closer, you see that it is none other than Lord Yama, the Lord of Death, the Lord of Dharma, the Lord of Change, the great teacher, the bringer of transformation. He is seated upon a black male buffalo with massive horns. His skin is green in color. He looks powerful, with a large belly. And he holds in his hand a skull staff and a loop of rope. And you watch him come closer, standing above the shape, which is that issue that you're ready to let go of. And he drops a loop of rope around that object, around that shape, and the rope immediately tightens around it, securing it. And you see Yama looking at you, smiling. And you see him turning around on his buffalo, riding off slowly into the distance, dragging away that issue, dragging away that shape, dragging away the words associated with it. And continue breathing and tune into your body again, to that area where that issue was residing, and just notice any changes in how that area feels. Does it feel warmer or lighter or more energized? Or is it something you feel slowly healing? Just be aware of whatever that sensation might be. I invite you now to take a deep and clearing breath, letting go of the meditation. And thanking the divine in all its forms for being present in your life and in this ceremony, especially Lord Ganesha, Lord Shiva, Ma Chamunda, and Lord Yama Dharmaraja. And I invite you now to take another deep and clearing breath, bringing the palms of your hands together at heart center. Give gratitude to yourself for taking this time to take part in this puja and meditation and satsang. Knowing you can always come back to this recorded broadcast and take part in the puja and meditation again if you have need. And slowly opening your eyes and coming back to your surroundings. And namaste. Sana Bhavatu, Sana Bhunaktu, Saviryam Kadavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvidyavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarvamangala Mangalye Shiva Svadasadike Saranye Triambake Devi Naryane Namostute. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Om. Jai Ganesha. Jai Guru. Om Namah Shivaya. Jai Makali. Jai Yama. Jai Yama. Jai Yami. Namaste. Blessings always. Thank you so very much for joining me tonight. Namaste, and have a wonderful night, a restful night's sleep, and a wonderful weekend ahead. Please stay warm in this upcoming snowstorm that we're expected to have. Thank you. Good night.